Hey folks, today I have the pleasure to host for the first time Alexandra. Hi Alexandra.
Hello. How are you doing, Yusuf?
Very good and very happy to host you for the first time. And I think we're going to talk about a hot topic. And well, my question is very easy. Are you using AI BI Genie currently?
I do. I actually use it quite a lot. I use it obviously like for demos, presentations, and so on. But I also use it for like to get information about data that is relevant for me. But essentially, for everything when I need to get some answers from my data.
But first, for those who maybe never heard about Genie, this is your way to interact with natural language with your data. Basically, you're just gonna ask a question. So just to give you an idea, what I did recently, I created an account in the Databricks free edition,
Hmm.
and I got all the data on the football games from the World Cup,
Okay.
and I aggregated all this data in on a table, and now I'm using Genie to ask questions. For example, how many games did Morocco win on the World Cup? For example, since 1988.
On your trivia team, like on a pub quiz.
Yeah, basically, I mean, just get any data, put it on Genie, and put it reference those tables on Unity catalog, put it on Genie, and then basically just ask your questions. You can do it, I don't know, for movies, you can do it for finance, as long as you have a data source and a table on Unity catalog, you can just start asking questions easily.
First of all, we're talking about structured data. And besides all those toy examples, it has also a lot of business applications. You can talk about your financial data. You can talk about your, I don't know, healthcare, patients' data, and so on. So it doesn't really matter what kind of data it is. You can ask questions to your data set using natural language.
And I think you mentioned something very important. Make sure to create one Genie per business unit or per use case, to make sure that you only bring the data you need. Because like it's like when you're asking someone, hey, do you know finance, do you know marketing, like this person will get overwhelmed. So that's going to be, let's say, the same thing for Genies.
It's also kind of opens a broader topic about how you make your Genie space actually yours, how you make it efficient, and how you ensure that you know that it is efficient, that you can prove that it is efficient. I think it all starts with a benchmarking. Like if you have a really good understanding and really good way of measuring how good your answers from your Genie space are, then you can do something to improve it. But if you don't know how good or bad it is, it's really hard to move in any direction. What is your way of, let's say, starting from scratch with a Genie space?
Building benchmark first, which means like
Mhm.
finding the right data sets, and then immediately building benchmarks. And what I mean by benchmark is that you bring your question and you also copy paste the answer. And
Yeah.
then whenever you add some specific instructions, some add more comments, you go and check, you run the benchmark and see whether your, let's say, instructions and additional tables behaved well, or maybe they were a little bit biased. So you still need to go and, let's say, add some modifications. If you think that your table is, let's say, well structured and the name of the comments is crystal clear, then it's very easy for Genie to understand the context. If your like the name of the column is like, I don't know, XY underscore Z, then I'd recommend you to go and the comments that column. Like give some explanation. What does this comment do? Or what's the purpose of this table? This will help Genie understand how to query this table. And I think this is something very important. Start small and keep adding more tables if you think those tables are relevant. And you can also, if you think that within the same table, you have some columns that you won't need, you can basically just open the table inside Genie and hide those columns. So they won't be sent in the instruction, which gonna give you more context to add additional columns.
Yeah, but I think if your table is called table one and your columns are X, Y, Z, you have a little bit like a bigger issue. But I completely agree with you. Columns, column names, comments, basically all that metadata around your data is absolutely crucial for Genie. If that is not in the right shape, Genie will struggle to give you a right answer. Like basically any single normal person who will ever touch that data. But I also think that one important aspect is to help Genie understand your business jargon. So essentially, specific terms or specific statements that you use in your business, you can do it in Genie by using synonyms. So essentially, you add all those words that are critical for your business as a sort of glossary for Genie that it can use to answer your questions properly. To me, it's one of the features that users are not really like using to the full advantage, I would say.
In addition to the synonyms you've mentioned, you can also infer the values. And I think also this one can be very interesting. Let me give you a simple example. For my World Cup, Genie World Cup, if I ask like, hey, give me the like, how many games did Morocco won in the World Cup? Let's suppose in my data, like Morocco only exists within acronyms, which means MO. So basically, Genie will filter by team equal to Morocco, but Morocco doesn't exist. The value Morocco doesn't exist in that table. It's MO. So basically, when you, let's say, get or infer the values, Genie will understand that Morocco means MO, and which gonna help me have a result and not return null value. So inferring values can be also very important. And when you filter, I think it's gonna help a lot. So, and I think if I remember well, for now, those values can be inferred automatically. But if you think something is missing, you can just go and enable this feature inside the column.
One thing to add to that is that you can also encapsulate certain complicated logic in a SQL statements. Because sometimes you have some specific, let's say, some specific logic or some specific calculation or some specific way of connecting the tables together. And this is what you do need to provide to Genie to actually force it to follow those specific passes or those specific calculations. You can do it two ways. You can add SQL queries, or basically like example queries, and you can also set up explicitly mention what kind of joins you want to have between different tables. One caveat there, well, basically one note there, is that when you actually add in example SQL queries, don't add obvious queries. Like Genie smart enough to derive an obvious query. Like add something that is much more complicated, something that would be difficult for it to invent or to imagine, basically.
I've used all the
All
all the
the
features, but you mentioned something that I want to double down on it. You remember talk like putting your joins, and I wanted to know on which team are you? Are you the team that let's say define the primary keys and foreign keys on the table level, or you define them at the Genie level?
I am on a team in between. I do acknowledge that it's better to have them in your data model, so basically outside of Genie. But seeing a lot of examples from a different people, I think it's important to have them. If you have them just in general, doesn't really matter where, you're already on a right path. What is your preference?
I mean, if I have them already defined on the table, that's good. But again, if you're a data analyst and you want to benefit from this, you don't need to have those deep technical skills on data engineering to deploy or let's say improve your Genie experience. You can do literally everything on the UI. And also something I think I've got a lot of questions about it. Like, how can I uh, fine tune my Genie to make sure I tailor it to my specific needs? Well, the response, I think, is very easy. You just need to add instructions. So you can really put the entire logic of your company inside instructions. Just make sure to not copy an entire book inside the instructions, because the system will get lost. Just be really straightforward each time.
It's nice that you mentioned instructions. I want to be my point of view here is that instructions should be your last resort. So you shouldn't use instructions if you haven't done everything else, because instructions will never compensate for your bad data modeling or for lack of example SQL queries or not well-defined synonyms. You do need to complete all those steps first, and then if you still have some kind of literally instructions to Genie, like for instance, be more polite or answer it in a specific tone or way, then you can use it in instructions. But as you just mentioned, just having like the whole book, the whole like novel in instructions will definitely not make it the most efficient Genie space. What are your top three features in Genie? Like if you have to choose.
I'd more likely say synonyms,
Hmm.
inferring values, and also the possibility to bring functions. And I think this is a cool logic, because you can define a forecast function, or you can define a specific logic for, I don't know, you do have currency conversion. You can like define a function that does this currency conversion or forecast, and then whenever you ask this question, it will literally bring that function, like run it on the top of the like the data that has been returned, and you can have cool, awesome results. And I think the last feature, that I really, 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 really like is the agent mode. What are the trends of the sales for the past couple 4 years? So this question is vague. So here you're gonna let the system define, think about a lot of instructions, and then after, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 minutes, gonna return a complete report with the response you wanna, like some really amazing response. I've been using it for quite some time, and I'm really, really amazed at how the agents mode can solve a lot of problems. I don't know. What are your thoughts about it, Alexandra?
Well, I absolutely love it. I think like to me, I use it by default. But I would like to say that if you are a data engineer, on the other hand, you also need to think that you are creating this Genie space for a business user in most cases. So when you do it, you need to think of what would work for business user, like what kind of questions they might ask and how they work with this information. That's your responsibility to have a proper data model, to select only a relevant table, only relevant columns, and so on. But at the same time, you do need to think what would work for a business user when you define your Genie space, meaning that you do need to emphasize on adding like proper synonyms, on adding good example SQL queries, not something that you came up with, but probably your business user actually would use, and so on. And I think that would be critical for a data engineer who is creating Genie space to actually make it the most efficient.
And I think something we could have mentioned at the beginning. Um, you can also use or leverage semantic layer inside Databricks. And why this is important? You can define your dimensions and your rules, your dimensions and rules, and then you can bring those metric views or semantic layer inside Genie, and then you can basically ask questions. What's my NRR? Well, you already defined your semantic layer, and the good thing, those semantic layer can be queried by data engineer, by data scientist, by ML engineers, AI engineer, anyone who wanna use those KPIs. They're gonna all have the same value and the same result. Because in the past, we used to define the semantic layer in the BI tool.
You can also define it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, or in Excel. Hi, Josue. This is problematic because if I'm data scientist, how can I access how can I access those values? Well, I need to use Excel or Power BI. Well, now you all are sharing the same, let's say, ground truth, which is the semantic layer that you can govern.
And it also opens a question of how much AI actually forces us to to bring our data in order, to actually define a proper semantic, proper data modeling, and so on. And I think a lot of questions that we kind of naturally try to ignore as data engineers are now coming back to us and like, hey, you do actually need to define a proper data model. And for business users, hey, you actually need to define what do you mean by customer. Yusuf, question to you. For a complete newbie, 3 things that you need to do when you create a Genie space from scratch.
Well, define the scope.
Check.
Start small.
Check.
And try it. And I remember someone told me, you can imagine Genie as an intern. It has a lot of knowledge and power, but more you feed it or with the knowledge of the company and the knowledge of the data platform you have, the better the system will behave.
Absolutely agree. I actually can't agree more. I think you always need to treat Genie as a very talented, absolutely absolutely smart new joiner who doesn't know yet about your company but super willing to learn.
And I have an easy question for you.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So how do you access Genie? Like which tool you're using? Are you using Databricks one? Are you embedding it in the REST API, or you're using it through your mobile phone?
Oof. So many options. I personally use Genie. Either I use Genie UI, or I make Genie available through like multi-agent systems. So, for instance, through Agentbricks. But that's my preference because I always treat Genie as a part of a bigger system or a bigger vision. But if not that, it's definitely Databricks one. I love it. What about yourself?
Well, for my case, I use it through like mainly Databricks one. And more lately, I started using Databricks one mobile app, which means I can ask question almost. I can query my Genie everywhere while taking public transportation, at the airport. If someone is asking me some questions that I don't know, well, Genie is now my go-to solution.
I already see it happening. You are at the airport and somebody says like, hey, does anybody in this room know how many games Morocco team won in 1975? And the user is like, click, 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 click. Here is my answer.
I have now a dashboard. I have the Genie room, Genie space, and I have also an app where I can now simulate. Like you can just click on simulate. It will give you all the results for all the upcoming games and who gonna win, and and then you can download the reports and share it with colleagues. So this is become a game. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of football and a huge fan of Genie as well.
That's awesome.
I can grant you the permission to view my Genie, so you can maybe start asking random questions to increase your football knowledge.
I'm gonna do that. Let's give it a try.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexandra. And well, do we need to share with them the good news?
Yeah, so we're gonna turn it into a series of like a tips and tricks. Let us know if you like it. If you would like to upskill yourself in certain parts of Databricks product, we will be covering like how to make it more efficient, how to work with it properly, and we will start it as a series of short videos.
That's right. Thank you so much, and see you soon.
In Lake Cow. Rise data seas, lake flow, streams the flow. Iceberg and Delta Lake, tables aglow. Unity catalog governs lake base, OOT pay strong. Genie text to SQL, Mosaic, and KI prolongs. Yusuf and Quentin, co-hosts light the fire.